Buffalo Brother George, how are you today?
Oh, I'm fantastic. How about you, Buffalo brother John?
I am also fantastic.
John, we haven't done one of these in a while, have we?
We have not. Well, things pop up, and then we were kind of waiting to get closer to the draft, and then next thing you know, the draft is here.
Well, there were so many things going on.
Yeah,
There was almost too much to continue to go on and say because it's being reported by so many different
that's
sites.
true. Yeah,
And we will come on and say the exact same thing.
yeah, that's true.
The
Yeah,
biggest thing, of course, that happened is that Stephon Diggs is gone.
Stephon Diggs is gone. Yeah, we thought couldn't happen because of salary cap issues. Turns out it could.
I'm glad we didn't say anything at the time. We needed to absorb what happened. And I'm glad I waited because how I felt at that time and how I feel now are a little different.
Oh, okay. Okay.
When it first happened, I was like, how could they do this? They got to be crazy.
Yeah.
They're going to pay this guy 30 something $1 million to go play for another team. They didn't have to trade him now, and they didn't get back anything good enough
A second round pick next year.
next year.
Plus, they had a gift picks up this year.
And it made no sense to me. And while it's still somewhat how I feel, I'm glad that he's gone. I really appreciated everything he did, but it was becoming such a distraction in the locker room, such a problem on the coaching staff, and issues between your team leader, Josh Allen, and the other team leader in Stephon Diggs. They had to break this up so the team could start concentrating again on football. And the Bills let so many guys go because of salary cap or age or whatever you want to call it. This is almost a new team going to be
Okay.
in many positions. This is almost like starting over,
Okay.
and I'm glad. Josh is going into his seventh year. It's time to make a push. The Bills management did a great job getting us back into the playoffs and in deeper into the playoffs, but we couldn't get it done.
Oh, I see. Over the past few years.
Over the past few years. They got us back again. We're playoffs contenders. We're serious contenders, but we couldn't get over the hump. We can't get past Kansas City. We have issues getting past Cincinnati. It's time to take a step back and say we need to do some really
Well,
important changes
I tell you what,
to bring this team all the way.
I didn't know we were going to talk about Stephon Diggs, but I blame all of it on the Bills management. All of it.
Okay. Yeah, I
The,
agree with
the
you.
single biggest problem they had was they brought in an offensive coordinator who was not ready,
Mm-hmm.
who did not have a track record of being like a hot shot, or he didn't come in here with this offense that he was going to install that was going to no.
Mm-mm.
It just they decided they were gonna try to stay the course. And if you really want to stay the course, you take Brian Dable and you make him your head coach. They didn't want to do that because they love McDermott, and that's fine. But the offensive coordinator crap that they got themselves into, I know that was last year. That I think blew any chance of winning out the door.
Mm-hmm.
I think it blew, and that is the single biggest issue. Teams that win don't have as many issues.
Yeah, that's true.
They had been stuck in a rut for 3 years,
Yeah.
and they both got hired somebody else. They had an opportunity to actually make a difference in that room, and they chose not to.
Yeah.
And I blame all of it. You have an offensive coordinator who had never been offensive coordinator or head coach anywhere, and he couldn't. I don't think he could deal with it. They have an interim offensive coordinator. Nobody knows if he's going to be back around next year. I don't think he could deal with the personalities either. So that's entirely on whoever makes those decisions. If that's McDermott, then it's on him. If it's McDermott and Bean, it's on him. If the owner's coming in and saying it's got to be somebody who's only going to make 600,000 or less, then it's on him. I mean, I don't know what they were allowed to look for. I can tell you that Cliff Kingsbury was not hired at the time they made the decision to keep their interim coach, they could have gone out and got him. Pay him whatever you need to. Get an offense. Get a guy in here who could run a damn offense of the of the 21st century or the 22nd century, whatever the hell year we're in. Because 1970 offense isn't going to get you anywhere. And that's where I think that I'm afraid that's where we're heading fast.
And let's say it. The Bills got some other issues, or the Pagulas do.
Yeah.
They found themselves now in a position where they got caught with their fingers in the cookie jar, so to speak, with all these trying to get licensing fees to season ticket holders and charge people tons and tons of money just for the ability to be able to buy a season ticket with all these crazy fees. And it was bad press. And now they find themselves in a position where they need to raise an additional $500,000. I'm sorry, $500,000,000 to finish the stadium. So they got to sell 25% off of the Bills team ownership. And the Bills are worth maybe $2 billion. So that means $500 million they got to get from somebody. And they got problems with their Sabres organization, the team that hasn't made the playoff in well over a decade. They got all kinds of issues going on. So, I think if it wasn't that case, then maybe the Bills may have, the Paculas may have gone ahead and done the full step back. And I mean, change the GM, change the coach, and start from a refresh. But with everything else going on, I think they're taking a half a step back and saying, go ahead, Bean, clear your books, go ahead and pay Diggs, just get him out of your locker room. We'll pay the bill, do what you got to do, and then recharge this team. And so they're doing a half a step back and leaving the coaching staff, leaving the general manager staff, and changing personnel.
Well, I don't know what all you've found in research or whatever about what's going on with the Pagulas. I haven't seen most of what you just said there. Um, one thing, just to clear up, they're not paying Stephon Diggs to play someplace else. They already paid him.
They paid him. Yeah.
They don't owe him a dime. They already paid him. So, like that, because it's an easy one to just misspeak on.
Well, I consider that they paid him. Now they're going to let him go play somewhere else on their dime. They could have kept him right here in Buffalo.
No, they already paid him. Had he stayed, they would have had to pay him more. Right? They would have had to pay him for this year. They don't. They paid him. This is work that they already paid him for work in the past. They didn't charge it against the salary cap for salary cap economics. All the money that
No, he got the salary cap was hit $28 million.
exactly they paid him money that they didn't charge against the salary cap. All that $28 million, they already gave it to him. If he had stayed, they would have had to pay him another 20 some million.
Not this year.
Yeah.
You're saying he would have got
He was
over
making
$50 million, 30 in his pocket, and another 27 this year by saying?
hello. Yes.
And when would that 27 show up on the books? On the
This year. His
No, his the salary cap wasn't 50 something million.
no. And again, okay, so he was owed this year to be paid each week. There was maybe some, but they were going to give him $28 million. Now Houston's going to do that to play this year.
I thought they weren't paying him anything.
Houston,
Yeah.
Houston has to pay him $28 million to play this year.
John, I got an idea.
Plus, Houston also is paying him guaranteed money for next year now, this year, so that he doesn't have a contract next year.
John, I'm retired.
Yeah.
You're not. You're still working.
Yeah.
Why don't you get yourself a job like that?
Yeah.
Maybe your company will pay you your salary and let you go somewhere else and they pay you again for your salary. I think that's That's the American dream, everybody. It's the
That
American
is the
dream.
American
Okay, either way, he's gone. He's out of our hair,
Yeah.
and good luck to him. Thank you for what you did, and let's just move on.
The other thing with the Pagulas, uh, I don't know what they nobody has ever that I saw has reported that season ticket holders were going to have they never really announced what the seat licensing was going to be. We found out about seat licensing for those luxury boxes,
Yeah.
and I could care less if they have to pay if they have to pay some luxury
Well, I
tickets.
think that's what they were going to
But
use to pay for
that's
help pay
fine.
for the stadium, and now they're not going to have
But
that money.
those are all corporate guys. Like
Mhm.
nobody's writing out a check from their personal account for that kind of money to get a luxury box. Those are all businesses.
Yeah.
So if they're going to find a way to charge businesses more, but whether or not they were going to have personal seat licensing for regular folks, regular seats, section 101, seat number 25, row L, we don't know for sure. There was a lot of speculation.
Well, either way,
But I never saw anything saying this was the plan, this is how much it's going to be.
either way, they find themselves in a position now where they got to raise $500 million, and they're going to do it by selling off a quarter of the bills.
The 25%
Mhm.
was also speculation because they announced it as being a minority ownership,
Mhm.
and other teams have used those words and have done 25%. But it could only be 10%. We don't know.
Well, we'll see.
We don't know.
We'll see.
Yeah. The minimum I've ever heard of is 10%. So it could be as low as that. Maybe they're talking 49%. We just don't know. And there's a lot of speculation out there. I do wonder sometimes, like, are the Pagulas just a hands-off ownership group? Maybe that's how they believe things should be run. Like unlike Jerry Jones is very hands-on, are they just a hands-off? Were they a bit more hands-on? And then when the wife had the medical issues, they just have not been focused on either team, the sports business. I don't know what is going on there.
Mhm.
But I do blame I definitely have um my blame for them to them is maybe it was time to change out the head coach. And I think that they are very far away from changing out McBean, either the GM or the head coach. So
Yeah, we like to call it McBean,
McBean, right?
because McDermott and Bean, yeah, McBean.
So that's my blame. That's my biggest concern with them. Uh, I've never heard anything about them not being willing to pay a player or not being willing to spend all of the salary cap. I mean, it seems like they do. So I don't have an issue there, but it, my concern is more an issue of McDermott maybe this has gotten as far as this team can go. Like if he doesn't get an offensive coordinator that can make a difference, they're never going to get any farther in the playoffs.
Mhm.
They may even not be able to make the playoffs soon. So that's a concern I have, and they trust him. They've given him extensions. I mean, they love this guy. So we'll have to see if their faith is ultimately pays off. But I'm very concerned that they've they're a hands-off ownership group, and they have put their faith in guys who cannot actually get it done. That's my concern.
Well, what we were going to do today is we got a hold of a list
Mm-hmm.
that was made by another YouTuber, Locked On Bills.
Lockdown Bills. I don't know his name.
But and we always do.
Lockdown Bills or Lockdown Buffalo.
We thank you for watching us, but watch them all.
Yeah.
This guy is a good one to watch. There's many good ones, and we encourage you to watch all of them. But he put together a list of how he graded players, gave them
He's got a scouting background.
first through seventh grading, and he did a great job putting together this list. And we encourage you to watch it and watch how he did it and what he talked about. We're not going to do what he did, but we're going to use his list because we think he did a great job, and we're going to use his list to look at it ourselves and say if this is the same list or a similar list that the Bills have put together, how they've ranked the players, then how do we think the Bills are going to conduct their draft based on the players on their list? And if they're picked by another team, they cross them off. And when you get down to your pick, say pick number 28, the first pick for the Bills, who do we think is going to be left from this list? And who do we think they may pick, or would they trade?
Okay, so looking at this little list here, hopefully you see it and you don't see us, but we don't know.
Our
Uh,
opens.
we hope that it is that you are actually seeing the screen. At the top, it's got positions, and then going down the left-hand side, you've got top half of the round one, back half of round one, round two, round three, and round four.
So the first round is split in two.
We split it in two.
The
Yeah.
the dark blue on the top is the first half, who we considers to be first half round grades. First half round one grades. And the light blue is second half round one grades.
Right. That's the reason we said top half and bottom half.
So the two blue colors together are round one.
Yeah.
Okay. And we know the Bills are not in the top half.
No, they got the 28th pick.
Unless they try to trade up. So now using this list, and again, we think he did a great job on this, and certainly we agree in most cases. And
I don't have any complaints.
yeah, no complaints. And
you start getting into day three guys, I don't know them.
You know, I would think the Bills have something very similar to this list. So shout out to the Locked On Bills.
Locked On Bills, yep.
So my question to you, John,
or Locked On Buffalo, I don't remember which.
When you go across the top of that round one, you can see under quarterback is Caleb Williams.
Yeah, he has one player as the top half round one as a quarterback, and that's for Caleb Williams.
But you know, you look at the second half of round one, he's got three more quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I mean, don't you think that even though he has them listed as the second half, and it's probably the true grading.
That's how he graded them, yeah.
Don't you think they're really going to go in the top half?
Yes.
Because teams up there need quarterbacks. So that's who they got to pick.
Yeah.
And that is my whole question on the draft. If this is going to be the same question when we come to the Bills, but if you're a team like New England and you decide you need a quarterback and you're picking third or fourth in the draft, whatever their pick is, Caleb Williams is probably going to be gone. So are you going to pick another player that you have graded in that dark blue as a top half? Or are you going to go get yourself a quarterback? Because those quarterbacks are going to be gone before you get to draft in the second round. So are you, in effect, going to take a fourth round pick and move down to the later part of the first round grading and take your quarterback? Or are you going to say, no, look, I need a quarterback so bad, but he's not graded where I want him, so I'm going to go ahead and pick an offensive tackle?
Well, the Patriots have the third pick.
Okay.
Not the third round pick.
The third pick. That's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah. Right. So I think you hit it on the head. No, you have to take him. Like, you have to take the guy that you like when it's your turn. And my rule of thumb has always been, first you got to get the single most important thing is your quarterback. If one is available and you like him, you got to take him. That unless you got unless you got your guy, you got to take quarterback.
Even though you have other players ranked higher than him.
Well, the problem is that it's how are you going to get him? The value of a franchise quarterback is so high that how are you going to get him? Are you going to wait till one hits free agency and try to get him that way? Look at Russell Wilson.
Yeah, right. I agree with you. Yeah. You've got to take a player that you need so desperately. This is a case where a player of need and a player position of want aren't the same. You have to look at it the same. If we need a quarterback desperately and we have one, even though he's later in this first round, but we think we like him a lot and we need him a lot, we're going to take him, even though we have this
Well, the other thing that you,
edge rusher
the part that you
higher.
passed over that I said,
Mhm.
rarity is important. I maybe really, really love cornerback. But if there's 6 of them still on the board and I'm okay with any of them, I ain't taking a cornerback. I'm going to try and get something else. Right. So I hear you, but rarity for quarterbacks is really an issue. So that's why if you have one available to you, you got to take them.
All right. So
Unless you've got your guy and you only play one.
with that said, and I understand what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. With that said, probably those 3 quarterbacks in the that are slated in the bottom half,
JJ
Grady,
McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, and Drake Mayo, just in case they can't see this.
they're probably all going to go in the first half of the first round and not the second half of the first round.
Well, they're probably all going to go on the first 5 or 6 picks.
Which means that some of these other players that are ranked up in the top half are going to fall.
For those of you who can't see it, this chart shows 16 players that have grades that would be the top half of the first round, which it just so happens
It's
with
about half.
2 picks, that is exactly half. But then there's only 14 players for the back half of the first round. So that would lead you to believe he's only got 30 first round grades, which
Right.
I think is not uncommon.
Mhm.
According to what I heard today, Sanford's the general manager for San Francisco was answering questions, and he said he's got 22 guys for first round grades. 22. But yet there's 32 picks in the first round. So some players are going to be taken who do not in the first round that do not have first round grades.
So people that are in the top half of the first round grading on this chart are probably going to fall because they're people that are in that dark blue area. Many of them are going to fall
Some could, yeah,
to that later half of the first round or even into the second round because people are going to be taking those quarterbacks.
Well, I don't know that any of them are going to make it to the second round, but there's only 16 of them there. I think there any number of
they
them
probably won't
could make it down into the 20s.
Yeah. So let's assume that is what happens.
Okay.
Now it's hard for us to say which one of those people on that list is going to fall. But I don't think it's any of those 3 receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, or Roma Dunze. I think they're all going to the top.
Probably, yeah.
Brock Bowers. I've done an awful lot of drafts myself.
A bunch of mock drafts, yes, yeah.
Almost always Brock Bowers goes in the top half. But I have seen him fall once in a great while, but he almost always goes. And the tackles, they almost always go in the top half, right? People love to get tackles. Especially if you're gonna get 4 new quarterbacks, you might be getting 4 new tackles.
Okay.
And then you've got, let's see if I can see him. You've got Barton. Am I reading it right, Jen?
I don't know what are you trying
under interior offensive line.
Well, there's none in the rated for the top half of the.
So edge, you got Dallas Turner, who sometimes falls to that second half.
Okay.
But never as far as the Bills.
Okay.
I never see him get past Dallas.
Okay.
I know his name is Dallas. I don't see him get past Dallas. Liatu Latu, he very rarely gets down to the Bills. Once in a while, since the reports of his injuries and medical issues, that kind of stuff. And who else is there? I'm trying to see. Jared Verse. Never. He's always in the top half.
Okay.
Brian Murphy the second.
Defensive tackle.
And he does fall once in a while down as far as the Bills, but generally goes in that second half. And then we go over to cornerbacks, Kenyon Mitchell and Taron Arnold. They always are gone. I can't tell you first or second half of that first round,
but
but
they're
they're
not
never
there by
there for the
28.
Bills.
Okay.
And Cooper DeJean, the safety, generally I see him in the second half and sometimes as low as the Bills.
Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
So if you got Cooper DeJean falling down, and if you get, um, say, Brian Murphy falls, and Brock, somebody else has to fall.
Well, I guess where I think where you're going is, in order for any of these players to fall all the way down to 28, there are 16 guys. There's only 16 guys
Mhm.
rated in the top half of the first round, or the grade, or the top half first round. So you need 10, what is that? Well, you need 12 players that are not graded for the top half of the first round to be picked instead of one of those guys,
Mhm.
in order for just one of them to fall to 28. So you know the three quarterbacks are all going to go before the Bills pick.
I could tell you,
You know that.
Brian Thomas Jr. is almost always above the Bills,
Okay, so that's
but
four
Xavier
players.
Legette most of the time is there where the Bills draft.
Okay, so that's four players that would maybe be picked before the Bills and maybe drop somebody else. What about
Fuega and
offensive
J.C.
tackles?
Latham,
Okay.
almost always gone before the Bills.
All right. So now you're up to 5, 6, 7 players
Okay.
who may be picked that are bottom half of the first round guys who may be picked and might push somebody down. What else we got?
Okay. Barton is almost always, he's always gone.
So what do we 8 players?
Morgan's always gone.
9 players?
And Nate Wiggins is always gone.
10 players.
Yeah.
So there are so if all the players that are given uh top half of the first round grades are picked before the Bills pick, and you just named 10 players that have back half of the first round, that's still only 26. So no real reason to expect anybody with a top half grade to make it all the way down to Buffalo.
Yeah,
There
right.
really is no reason to
It's
expect
just,
that.
it's very rare you would see any of those names.
It's almost, it happens so rarely.
I can't
George
even,
has done probably 100 mock drafts, and
oh,
himself.
easily,
Yeah,
easily.
it's almost an aberration.
On different sites.
Yeah, it's almost an aberration when somebody
Mhm.
that has a grade for the top average of first round make it to 28. Okay.
But what I have seen is a lot, what I've seen, excuse me, a lot, John, is that Chop Robinson makes it to the Bills many times. Jerzon Newton makes it to the Bills almost all the time.
And Leggett.
Leggett makes it to the Bills almost all the time.
So Chop Robinson's an edge rusher, just in case you can't see this at home. Chop Robinson's an edge rusher, interior defensive line, so a tackle. Jazon Newton, I think he's along the most. He's a number 3 technique, so he's like a more like a Oliver than a Daquan Jones, but he makes it there. And then
Occasionally,
Xavier
yeah,
Xavier Leggett tends to make it,
and
to the
occasionally
Bills.
Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Also, we should note that the guy who put this together, he favors Leggett.
Mhm.
There is a real possibility that Leggett getting a first round, even a back half of the first round grade, is really due to this particular grade person who was giving out the grades just favoring him, and he acknowledges that
Mhm.
others probably have him lower, but that's fine. We're
Yeah,
dealing with what
that's
we
fine.
got. That's fine.
So my question now is we get to pick 28,
Get the pick 28.
and you got on your board Chop Robinson,
Chop Robinson,
Jerzon
Newton,
Newton, and Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Mhm.
And let's say they're all there,
and Xavier Leggett, probably
and probably Xavier Leggett.
right.
But Xavier Leggett, you don't have rated as high.
Well, he does.
Yeah, but the Bills board does.
Well, this is your hypothetical situation.
Mhm.
Okay.
The Bills we know have brought in Lad McConkey,
Mhm.
and Anthony Mitchell.
So I think what you're going to go to is you're asking me what I would do.
I'm asking you, do you take a guy that is you have on your board ranked higher, a Chop Robinson or Jerzon Newton or Kool-Aid McKinstry, and not take a wide receiver,
Even though you have great need.
even though you have a great need, and the guy you like is Lad McConkey, and now you're not going to take him because you've got these other three guys that you have graded higher. Are you not going to take him and hope that somebody's there at pick 60 and probably not going to be there? So are you going to risk your wide receiver and maybe going all the way down to those third down or third round picks that you're going to have to pick in the second round
Okay.
to get a wide receiver? Or are you going to say, look, I got all these other players ranked higher than my third round wide receivers?
Just to try to clarify, at 28, the Bills could have an issue where the receivers that are left are guys that have second round grades. But they do have non-receivers that they still have first round grades on.
Yes.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that you wanted to point out is that by pick 60, which is effectively close to the end of the second round,
Mm-hmm.
the players that have the wide receivers that have second round grades will be long gone. There's only 4 of them, and they're long gone. So if you're thinking I'll get my wide receiver later, you're probably not getting them at 60 because everybody that's left has got a third round grade.
And you don't have a third round pick. So now you're going to wait for the fourth round to get a wide receiver. And who in the heck do you think's going to be there?
Some guy named McMuffin, some guy named Burger King, Luke McCaffrey, your buddy.
Yeah, you played for Nebraska for a little while.
Now, first of all, I would like to point out that I think that given an option, they should definitely draft Luke McCaffrey. And here's why. I believe Christian McCaffrey, when he was available, when he was with Carolina and he was available, he did not want to come to Buffalo. I think he really wanted to go to the West Coast, and they were able to work a trade for him with San Francisco. So I think you should draft his brother. Fuck him. Just
maybe he'll get traded to Buffalo to play with his brother. You think?
No.
Actually,
so we just had a little fun there, but like he has a longtime Christian McCaffrey has a longtime girlfriend who works in LA, and she is based there. She's a model, and she was going out to Carolina for every home game. So it's a real possibility that he really did want to go.
Yeah, sure.
West, like, just to help her out because she gets on a plane and flies out for every home game. All right. And look, McCaffrey, we actually know him a little bit because we also followed the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and he was on their team for 2 years.
It was a quarterback,
a wide receiver, and also a quarterback.
They had him as a quarterback. He could run. We saw him run as a quarterback
with Adrian. What was the quarterback's name? Adrian Martinez. Adrian Martinez was great. Sometimes he would throw a pass to Luke McCaffrey, but McCaffrey was definitely a backup.
If Luke McCaffrey was there in the later round, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, you see, but he's got speed.
He comes from a family that good athletes.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
Right.
Look what we got with James Cook.
Right. Absolutely. His brothers. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, but getting back to your quandary, what do the Bills do?
Well, that's the question. Now, it's not just are they going to pick him here? You've got a couple of options you can think about. Do you say, now here you are, Bean, and you go, you know what? I see the dilemma. Do I try and trade up and get one of the guys, whether one of the guys that are first round rated, which could be Brian Thomas Jr., Dunze, Neighbors, or Harrison, or guarantee myself Xavier Legette? Do I move up for one of those? do I move down out of the first round and get myself a second and third round pick so that I've got an option
Okay,
to get a wide receiver?
I have
Mhm.
some answers for you.
Okay.
First thought is, I think we agree, if you do, when looking at a draft, if you are a team that doesn't have your quarterback solution,
Mhm.
and there is one available that you love, you got to get it like that.
Yeah.
Solve that because teams struggle without
I
that.
have no question or problem with that. I think you're absolutely right on that.
Now, to me, the second most rare and valuable, if there is an edge rusher that you love, somebody who can get into the backfield and make a difference, you got to go get him.
Mhm.
And I said edge, not tackle.
Mhm.
Like, who is the tackle for the Rams when they went to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald. Or if you think there's an Aaron Donald, of course you would take him. But
A guy
I
that
get
could
that.
get that kind of pressure off.
From the inside, that's fantastic. But they're very rare. So if Chop Robinson is sitting at 28, if you like him, if you think
It's
he can
hard
make a
not to
difference,
take him.
you got to take him. You got to take him. It's not Chop Robinson's fault, if you will. Like the assessment as to whether or not to take Josh Robinson needs to be independent of your need at wide receiver. Because the next time if you believe in him, the next time you have a chance to, like those guys don't make it. We got a guy, Russell Grant.
Groups.
We got a guy. We got him at the end of the first round.
I don't think he'll be here after his
Well, and
fifth year.
and they got it. They're debating, I think, on whether or not to pick up the 50 option.
Absolutely.
If you think Chop Robinson and he's sitting there at 28, if you think he's a difference maker, the one that you hoped would become, you got to take him. That difference that makes on the defense is phenomenal.
Let me make sure I got this right. If you've got Xavier Legette and Chop Robinson graded the same, you take Chop Robinson.
It's a rarer.
Okay.
It's rare. It's harder to get. And if you are going to get one that with not in the draft, you got to pay him Von Miller type money. Like, how much would the Bills like right now not to have the Von Miller contract? They would pay an awful lot if somebody would take that Von Miller contract off their hands.
Now, knowing that you're going to do that as the Bills, you in reality,
But you love him. You got to believe he's he's the next.
you in reality, at the very best, are going to be looking at that third round wide receivers as for pick 60 if you want a wide receiver.
Wide receivers that have third round grades. So
Yeah.
at pick 60, I'm going to be looking at because some of these guys, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This fellow has 9 players with a third round grade. 9 wide receivers with a third round grade. So yeah, some of them are still going to be there at 60. I think that's clear.
But you're also, if you do that,
Mhm.
you're going to pick a third round wide receiver in the second round, then you're not going to get one of these safeties. You're not going to get one of these
No, I got
defensive tackles.
no. Hold on, because we didn't get there yet.
Okay.
You've made an assumption. What I said was,
I don't make an assumption.
if the edge rusher that you think is going to make a difference, a double-digit sack guy, is sitting there, you have to take him, as long as you got your quarterback play. The next position is wide receiver, and that's kind of new. Like the next, I think the next position in the past might have been cornerback, but now the next position that you got to lock up is wide receiver. They are just too valuable, and the cost of them, like whether the Bills or Houston are paying $28 million, a number one wide receiver makes $28 million or more. The guy in Miami makes Tyreek Hill, he makes more. So you got to lock them up there, and they make that money because of how valuable they are. You got to, if you have an opportunity to get one, you have to that you love and you think is a whether that's a number one or a number two or an X or a Z or a Y. If your guy is there, you got to take him. You can't pass up a wide receiver. But the order is quarterback, sack person, which is generally an edge, not generally an edge, and then wide receiver. That's how I would place it. Important. So in the if we took Chop Robinson because he happened to fall. So in that scenario, if Chop Robinson wasn't there and Josiah Newton was there, he's a tackle. I probably am passing on him because wide receiver is too important.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's if you don't have if Chop Robinson's there, but Bean doesn't believe that he's a double-digit sack guy, okay, don't then you gotta pass him by. That's fine. Um, the only other thing I'll throw at you, George, is that on this chart, Xavier Legette, that fellow liked him. So he's got him up as a back half of the first round guy. It is possible that Beam doesn't have him there, but that he might have Ladman Cockney there. You might have an AD Mitchell there. We don't know. But if that's the case, and there is a guy, a wide receiver with a first round grade or a back half of the first round grade sitting there at 28, yeah, they probably take him. My only thing, they're not going to take a quarterback, and it's unlikely an edge, a double digit sack guy is sitting there. So then, no, I think they probably would take their wide receiver right there. Now, if they don't, they do have a problem in the second round. Now, maybe there's a possibility the second round to use a couple of fourth round picks and trade up to try to get a receiver. Of the 8 or 9 guys with third round grades, I don't know which ones Bean likes, but overnight between Thursday and Friday, he might be able to work a deal to work up to get up into the second earlier in the second round to get a wide receiver that that he really likes if he thinks there's a difference maker there. That's a good way of utilizing your resources. What were you going to say? So we're
All right. So there's one more option that I haven't talked to you.
Oh, we didn't talk about trades. So what were you going to get in the trades?
Yeah. There. Okay. So I was saying you could trade down out of
Try to trade down
trade out of 28, which means you're not going to pick Chop Robinson.
Okay. If he was even there.
But you're going to try and go out of 28 and get yourself maybe another second and a third.
Okay, so you don't have 28, maybe you get like a 37.
I'm finding more that
40.
I've seen it get as high as a 32,
Oh.
but as low as a 54.
Oh, okay.
So let's say a 40, a pick 40.
Okay. But then still also something in the third?
And get something in the third,
Okay.
say like in the 90s.
Okay.
And then you can pick a wide receiver, probably out of that second round pick.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
And you can get yourself another second round pick guy, and maybe it's your safety, maybe it's an edge rusher if you're still okay with who's left there. Maybe it's a defensive tackle. There's some really good ones there.
Okay.
And you help yourself that way.
Okay.
And then I've also seen, and I think I may have mentioned it to you briefly, but where the Bills go all out, trade to farm. Now, I don't mean every pick, but I mean your first round pick, your second round pick, next year's first round pick, maybe next year's second round pick, maybe a third round pick, and move up to 5 or 6 so that you could pick if you want like a Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze.
Okay, so let's break it down. Let's break it down. Do you want to talk about the prospect of moving up first?
Sure.
Okay. And then we'll talk about the prospect of moving down after that.
No, let's move it down first
Okay.
because when we move up, we also have the option of moving back down.
Well,
So let's not do that yet. So let's just move down right now.
okay. Um, well, one of the things that did become apparent is at 28, we really don't know what the heck is. Obviously, you don't know what the heck is going to be there. But based on my little formula, if there isn't an edge rusher that's going to give you double digit sacks, you're looking for a wide receiver because that's my next thing. That's my next rarest thing and my next most important position. So at 28, there there is a possibility of moving down and still maybe getting a fellow with a second round grade.
Yes.
Because we were talking like there are probably going to be wide receivers with a second round grade taken in the first round,
Yes.
right? So if you're talking about moving down into the second round and it's still high enough up, which you're fairly confident you can get somebody with a second round grade, so that might be closer to the 32 position,
Mhm.
or maybe it's a 35, and then Bean has to trade a fourth to move up a couple. I don't know, but if he's going to kind of wheel and deal that much, but um, if that's, I think that that could be a very real possibility because of what we're seeing at the back of half of the first round. Like what's available at that time, it seems like you're reaching for a wide receiver or you're taking something else. Like I really, if Chop Robinson doesn't have a, if I don't believe that Chop Robinson is a double digit, or if Bean doesn't believe that Chop Robinson is a double digit sack person, that he shouldn't take him there. Defensive tackle, I would be willing to forego that position at that moment in order to possibly get that third round pick, if that's an option, or an additional fourth round pick, and slide back a few spots into the top of the second. So it might depend on just what else there. One of the things that may help with that, like if Chop Robinson's there might be a team that wants to move up to get him.
That's right.
There may be a team that wants to move up to get the defensive tackle Newton, or if Kool-Aid, which is a great name for a cornerback, if Kool-Aid or Nate Wiggins are sitting there, maybe somebody wants to move up. Both of them are cornerbacks. If somebody wants to move, so it's possible that B might be willing to forego taking that in order to pick up
Could you imagine playing the Jets and saying they got the hot sauce and we got the
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
And let me tell you why I think moving back is a strong possibility.
Mm.
When you look at the second round wide receivers, you'll see one there, Devontae Walker. Devontae's Walker.
So that's third round. The guy with third round rights, okay?
Devontae's Walker. He is the only player that the Bills had an interview at the combine, brought him in for a 30-day pre-draft visit, and went to his workout.
They call it a 30 visit because you're only allowed
I didn't say 30 days. Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The 30-player pre-draft visit,
yeah,
interviewed him at the combine, and went to his pro workout. That's the only player they did all three.
Well, I'm sure that they went to almost everybody's pro day.
I got a list.
I got you. I'm sure you do. But like, if they've got how many scouts? Got 12 scouts on that team, on that in that office. If they didn't visit every one of these that with a grade 3, I don't just mean wide receivers. I mean everyone with a grade 3, a round 3 grade and above. They had to have visited.
They did.
If they didn't visit all of them, I have to.
Yeah, they did.
Either some were on the same day and they just logistically couldn't.
Yeah.
Or they haven't done their due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can certainly understand you're not going to go visit JJ McCarthy. I get that. But when McCarthy does his pro day, there's a lot of guys at Michigan.
I just found it interesting that he's the only one that did all three.
Like it's 30 guys. They can't even draft 30 guys. So they often will draft one off of the 30-day visits. So or none. So I don't put any I don't put much stock into that. That's,
Oh, just something I'm gonna bring up. Then,
so
so
if they take him, that's great.
now you can move up, take your guy at wide receiver. If you move up to like 5 or 6 or 4,
Oh, now we're gonna talk about moving forward.
you could take your guy and live with the lumps and wait till your very next draft pick, which may be 133, might be 144. You're going to sit there and wait, but you got your wide receiver. But I think this team has way too many needs to do that. That's why I think moving down is going to solve more of their issues. And even though Chop Robinson, and we're picking on poor Chop Robinson may be a really great player. I think they're going to be the McBean to me has been more. Well, let's get a good player. Let's get a player that's good enough.
Well, that is kind of the Bills' motto.
And
That's
not
right.
let's just let's we don't all we already got Josh Allen. We think he's the great player. We don't need any more great players. We just need a whole bunch of good players.
Good enough players. Yeah.
Good enough players. And I think that to move and get still have a second round pick and pick up a third round pick is going to give them 2 players that they're going to be able to start.
Well, let me
A
put
wide receiver and a safety, a wide receiver and a defensive lineman.
let me say this. If they do that,
Mhm,
they forego taking Chop Robinson and trade away that pick.
mhm.
Every time the defense is on the field and the opposing team passes the ball,
Yeah.
every time they don't sack the quarterback, I hope it gives Bean an ulcer.
Well,
You can't.
Yeah.
You have to be smart. They don't have if he's a double digit sack guy. They don't have one. If you want to say Von Miller is one, that's fine. But he's closer to the Hall. He's closer to retirement than he is to getting double digit sacks. They don't have one, and they won't have one again.
I understand that, but I'm trying to tell you what my thoughts are and what I think the Bills are going to do. And I think the Bills are going to be looking for players that are good enough.
Well, that is like I said, that's their motto.
And when I thought about
That's
that,
Bean. They should be put on McBean's good enough.
when I thought about that, I
And that's
said,
good. Good enough to win a division. That's good enough.
if you want, you could try and trade all the way up to 4, 5, or 6. And then instead of taking one of those top 3 wide receivers, trade down again.
So trade up to 4, 5, or 6,
And then trade down.
and then trade down.
Get a lower first, maybe a second and third, maybe a lower first and a third, maybe a second, third, and fourth, and maybe a pick for next year. And you could get because the Bills have a lot of picks, but they're all on day 3.
Mhm.
And I think that would be a way for them to use some of next year's pick capital because they're going to use it to trade up to get number 4, 5, or 6, and then trade back and turn that next year pick capital into this year's pick capital up into higher range. Instead of having third and fourth round picks, we might see them have second and third round picks where they can get more of their issues taken care of, or even get a later round first round pick, but not as low as 28. Maybe they'll trade up and they'll go down to 17 and still pick up a third round pick.
Okay. Well,
Do I think I'll do that? No, I don't. But I've thought about it. I've tested it.
Well, you've tested it on a toy,
Yes.
the website,
And I
right?
found
The
that you're
websites.
going to get rid of next year's picks. You're selling next year for this year.
Well, here's the thing. We've seen teams trade up and then still trade back.
Mhm.
Generally, that's because they traded up and their guy wasn't there. So they traded back a bit because now my guy's not here. So they traded up before the draft, then went ahead and traded back down when their guy wasn't there. We've seen that happen. If I understand, you would like to move picks from next year to this year and try to get them in that range between
Low
back half
one
of the third, so yeah, bottom to all the way
to third
to
round.
three. Okay. Because that's where the meat of this draft is.
That's right.
And that I don't know how well that would work. One thing that you have to wonder, like right away, the team that trades away the fourth round pick, say, why wouldn't they just take the 17th pick? Like somebody else then traded 17 for 4. Why wouldn't the team that's going from 4 to 28, why wouldn't they just go from 4 to 17? They end up with a 17th pick, which is far more valuable than 28. Why wouldn't they just take it?
Mhm.
Like if that's available, if that's sitting there, why wouldn't they take that? If that's options available to them, because then in the first round of this year, they got a pick that's 11 picks higher.
Well, all I would tell you is these are just options that I came up with.
Here's
I don't think the Bills are going to do that,
here's the other thing.
but it is an option.
Buffalo Bills do all that and they get up to the fourth round, they get up to the fourth pick. Every time Marvin Harrison Jr. catches a touchdown pass, Bean should get an ulcer. Like
If he doesn't,
you know, you got the fourth round pick and you don't take the best reserve receiver. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, I don't
Like,
think he'd be here. I don't think he'd still be employed.
well, based on our conversation about the Pagulas, I'm not sure
Yeah.
I'm not sure they're paying attention. So I don't know that they know the difference. But yeah, if he doesn't pick, if he thinks Neighbors is better, as this guy's name, Neighbor, if he thinks Neighbors is better, that's fine, pick Neighbors. But you go all up to the fourth and then don't walk away with Marvin Harrison Jr., the guy who is almost the undisputed, like there are guys who say Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb Williams is the first pick because he's a quarterback and is certainly apparently on a tier of his own. You know, absolutely. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is still better. So if you have a chance to take that and then you don't,
Well,
so it seems. But what about moving up to try to get Roma Dunze?
well, generally that's maybe one step below. So instead of moving up to 4, you're moving up to 5 or 6 to get Roma Dunze. So it's almost the same.
Well, you got Neighbors, so like,
And sometimes Rome goes before Neighbor, sometimes
okay,
after.
So okay, so I should.
But generally, they
what
go
about getting one of the other
they-
two guys? Can they
Yes.
get the other,
they
one of the
can
other guys?
try moving up to get Brian Thomas Jr.,
Oh, okay,
but they may have to go up as high as 12 or 13 to get him.
And is that very expensive?
Well, not as expensive, certainly, as
It's
moving
number
up
four.
to 4, but expensive enough.
Okay.
But if that's your guy, then I can see them doing that. And I'll
Like-
be quite honest with you, that's what I'm expecting them to do.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
That is
So-
what I'm
So let me
expecting them.
just, I know that just in general, to get from 28 to a position where you could get a Brian Thomas Jr.,
Mhm.
are they giving up their second round pick this year? Like you got to give up number 28. Would they also be giving up number 60? Or are they
I
doing a
think they're
variety
giving
of
up number
next year?
28 and maybe next year's first round pick or next year's second round pick.
Well,
Probably a first and next year's second being the Minnesota pick, which is probably going to be higher than the Buffalo
okay.
pick. So I think they're going to give up 28 next year's Minnesota and maybe a fourth round pick to move up high enough to get.
Look, if that's all it takes.
You should do it.
Well, hold on. Because once they get up there, you have to go back to my rules. Do they have a quarterback? Yes, they do. Is there a guy that can get maybe double-digit sacks for you available? Latu, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse. Do they believe any of them are any of them still available? And can they get them? And can one of those guys get double-digit sacks for him?
They maybe, but
If so,
Then
make
so-
the trade. Take one of them.
well, maybe so. But
So if they still get their, if they still get
you're,
their
you're
number six,
talking about a team that traded away their number 1 wide receiver with maybe one of the best quarterbacks that ever played this game, now with the worst wide receiver room in the NFL, and you're going to take a defensive guy. He had better. They're going to come, be those old westerns with the lynching rope.
Hang him high.
Hang him. I mean, come on. He's got to go up and get the wide receiver for Josh Allen. He's got to take care of that.
I would like to direct you to another one of our favorite video folks. Today, Buffalo Plus had a video come out.
Mm-hmm.
And the young fella, Dan, was regurgitating information from the Move the Sticks podcast. Bucky Brooks was one of the fellows on that Move the Sticks podcast. And they were going through the statistics of hit and miss in the last four drafts, not 2023, but 2022, 21, 20, and 19. How many first round wide receivers were hits and misses? How many second round wide receivers are hit and misses? And what they came up with was only about 35% of the first round wide receivers would be considered hits. So I think we're going to see veterans. Like they could get their wide receiver. They could get a wide receiver, maybe two, but we're still going to see a veteran. They are going to sign a veteran. I think they have to because they want.
What veteran do you think is out there?
Well, I suspect that there will be some cuts after June 1st.
You thinking a cut on a wide receiver that's going to improve our room?
I think there's probably going to be a few that way.
Okay.
But on top of that, you're talking about gambling with rookies. We don't know the Bills' schedule, but game one of this season, you think those rookies are going to be ready to make a difference? No, which means that the guys they got in that room right now, Samuel,
Curtis Samuel,
Holland,
Hollins.
right? Those guys are going to have to make a difference. And then Kincaid and Knox as tight ends. That's your room until those rookies are ready. And it's going to be a few games. How many games do you want to lose with rookies?
Well, I don't.
I just think they have to get.
That is really interesting, and I'm hoping we can hold that until after the draft because I think we're going
Let's see what they get. Yep.
We're going to look at it and say, here's what they got, and here's what they really still need, or here's the offense that we think that they're going to present.
Yeah,
based on now knowing what they've got.
They're not going to get a replacement.
They're not going to get a replacement for Diggs.
No, they're not going to get.
Are we going to run more? Are we going to be a short pass team more like we did under
right now? They went out
offensive coordinator.
They went out and signed two free agents for safety, Mike Edwards, and then they re-signed Knapp, right? Knapp. That's kind of the level they're going to get. Another player along the lines of value of Curtis Samuel, but with a different skill set.
Well, if they trade for Brandon Ayuk and they find a way to pay him, then we don't have to draft. Well, then we could totally disregard the wide receiver early in that draft, and we might be able to get this Devontae Walker in the 5th round.
One of the things like Ayuk, part of the reason that they're having difficulty moving him right now is nobody wants to give up a pick this year for him. They want to go up next year's pick, but San Francisco wants this year's pick. So once the draft is over,
they feel they're that close.
Once the draft is over, then they might be willing to talk about 2025 picks, even a 2026 pick. So I don't know that the Bills would be able to make it, but I think as far as him getting moved, it's probably much more likely to happen after the draft. Or I think San Francisco's still holding out that maybe something on draft day. They're still holding out because they haven't gotten the deal they're looking for until they got their heart set on getting stuff that's going to help them this year. Until that draft is over and they see that it's not going to happen, then the chances of him being traded probably go up. But the draft isn't here yet. Anything can still happen.
Mhm.
But if the Bills are going to give up future resources, I'd rather them give up future resources for a proven guy.
No, I agree.
You know, and if they can't afford a Diuk, there may be some mid-level guys that they could bring in who already know how to run routes at an NFL level. So I think that they might very well make a trade or pick up a free agent
That's
after.
why I'm surprised that we didn't try moving Diggs during the draft. Used him for bait to move up.
Well, I don't know what, like,
Because
first of all,
I'm with you. They should try and have gotten something to make a difference this year, and they didn't. They got a second rounder for next year.
right. And uh, I think since San Francisco is still holding out that they could get something this year. Now, the thing about Diggs, though, like, first of all, no one knew they were negotiating. He was on the trading block until they announced it.
Mm-hmm.
But San Francisco, like, everybody knows Ayuk is on the trading, right? So like, it's it's a different way of doing business. I don't know what it cost them to be that secretive. Is it possible that there is a team, maybe Denver, that would have given up more? I don't know. But they seem pretty happy, and they were willing to take something next year. They don't have a third round pick this year, but they're willing to take something next year. We might see a straight up pick. We might see a straight up draft. I'm sorry, trade where the Bills trade into the third round this year using that second round next year. If they really want to get into the mid levels this year, we might see something like that.
All right. Well, we're kind of going along here.
Yeah, it's a long one. Sorry, guys. Anything else you want to say to wrap it up?
No, I just said I think the Bills are going to take that first round and trade back. I don't know if you want to make a prediction or if you want to just sit back and enjoy the show. My callers are going to move back out of that first round.
Well, I tell you what. After doing this, and with the information that you provided with all of the mock drafts that you saw,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of with you. The value at 28 might be moving back. What
Mm-hmm.
else you can get with it, as opposed to making a pick there.
Because
That could be.
another second round pick and a third round pick could definitely affect your class.
Yeah, like if they're determined to take a wide receiver at 20, if they're determined to take a wide receiver first with with their first pick of the draft, the difference between 28 and 35
It's not that big.
may not be that much, and then picking up something else makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it could be a third.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
Well,
that's
I
where I'm
think it'd be
going.
the second.
Like I'd rather have pick
Or
99 in the third
maybe
round.
it's a fourth, and then they start packaging fourth,
Mhm.
couple of fourths and a fifth to get back into the third. I mean, I don't know, but
When I did the trade up and trade back, I was able to get 4 or 5 picks within the top 100. And that really affected my draft.
well, again, that's trading up and then
And I
trading
traded
back,
back. And I switched it and got
and
a lot of second and third round picks.
and there is always the consequence of you go into next year with no something,
That's right.
no first, maybe no first, or maybe only 1 second.
Yeah, maybe
so,
not even your third.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So there, it hits you next year. To so I don't know how willing they would be to do
Mhm.
that anyway. All right, thank you everybody for watching.
Okay.
We'll talk. We'll see you later.
Enjoy the draft
Enjoy
this
the
weekend.
draft.
And we'll talk to you after that.
Well, yeah, I'm sure we'll do something after the draft.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.